So today we are going to discuss on this very important topic, which is very relevant in today's world, which is how to win the war with your mind. Well, this is very important topic because of this situation that's going around across the world. Uh, Everyone is too much in stress, anxiety, going in depression, and has so much fear in their mind. So we from ISKCON, we thought it's such an important topic to discuss on, and Krishna has spoken at such an elaborate length about this topic in Bhagavad Gita. Why not take some extracts from the Bhagavad Gita and present it to the general population so that they can imply it in their life. They can use the teachings from Bhagavad Gita in their life, and maybe it will help them uh, overcome the roadblocks. Okay, so my name is Chintan Raja. I live in. I'll give a quick introduction about myself. I'm a graduate from Pune University. I did my engineering from there. I have been working in the IT industry. I worked in India and US for more than 12 years. Currently, I work for a big bank in US. And I've joined ISKCON in 2016. And I've been practicing the teachings of Bhagavad Gita since last 4+ years. I've organized multiple talks and with the esteemed speakers at ISKCON, and I also mentor some people in new people who are joining ISKCON. So I do mentorship as well. I live in Jersey City, New Jersey. I'm married and I live here. So anyone know who's the person I'm projecting about? I'll just give a quick introduction about him. If no one knows, Abhijit or Pooja, do you know who he is?
Sorry, I don't. I forgot the name actually. I used to know him in my college days.
Hmm.
He is the founder of ISKCON.
Correct. Yes.
Prabhupada, yeah.
Yeah, his name is His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. We call lovingly him as Srila Prabhupada. He is the founder Acharya of ISKCON. 50 years ago, in the year 1965, he traveled in a cargo ship which took him 38 days from India to US to spread this message of Bhagavad Gita, the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, to all the people in general in the Western world. This was, well, the message he was trying to convey to everyone is that generally we look happiness from outside, we look for happiness in the things in the material world, but he gave us this message of the real happiness and the sustainable permanent happiness is within us, and you can explore it within us by establishing your relationship with God and going back home, back to God, and progressing on the path of spirituality. So this is the message he, by awakening your consciousness, which is in dormant state, which is the Krishna consciousness. So that is why ISKCON means International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So this is the overview of all the topics that we are going to cover today. We'll know why we all of a sudden we are waging a war on mind. What's the reason behind that? And we'll see what is the function of mind. What is it supposed to do? Then we'll see, understand the mind. What is it doing actually? Function of mind is what it is supposed to do, and understanding is what is it doing and where is it located. Where is the mind is located as per Bhagavad Gita. And we'll see how mind tricks us and how mind attacks us and what is the remedy to deal with mind. So there are, our scriptures describe there are three types of miseries one person faces. Anyone in this material world, they are bound to face these three miseries, which is Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik, and Adi Atmik. And what does Adi Daivik means? These are the miseries arising from natural catastrophe, which are which are in no one's control, like floods, forest fire, earthquakes, tsunami, and the current pandemic also. This is all Adi Daivik. This is by material nature. Second is Adi Bhautik, the miseries inflicted by other living beings. The misery is caused to us by our boss or by our colleagues or by our relatives or enemies, friends or enemies or our anyone. So any other person or any animal causing miseries to us or anything that all falls into, like you're walking on the road and a dog bites you. That is Adi Bhautik miseries because it is caused by other living beings. And Adi, so this is also to an extent not in our control. So Adi Daivik is not in our control. Adi Bhautik is also not in our control. Adi Atmik is the third type of miseries, which is caused by our mind and body. Body gives us so many types of miseries. There is head pain, migraine, there is cough, cold, or fever, so many knee pain or bone pain and all that. Different kinds of multiple diseases are there. That is also what kind of disease we will face. We do not know. There are doctors, but they can also, the medical healthcare system is there, but it can also help to us till certain extent. But there is one more misery that is inflicted to us, is by mind. Mind continuously keeps us proposing something which is against our good wishes, against our morals. Mind continuously keeps on proposing and makes us do those things. Bhagavad Gita says that it forces us, it impels us to behave in the wrong way. So, but this is the thing. If you control your mind, Bhagavad Gita says, if you do not control it, can be your enemy. But if you control it, it is your best friend. And if your mind is in control, you can deal with the rest of the miseries very easily. Miseries would be there, sufferings would be there, but you will overcome them. You will successfully overcome them. So it's like if you walk barefoot on the road, your foot might get hurt. But if you wear proper shoes, take care of your feet properly, then wherever you go, you can climb a mountain also, your feet will not hurt. Similarly, if your mind is in control, mind is well tamed, well trained, then it can deal with all these miseries in a very suitable manner. Okay, so this is a picture, and it is said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So can anyone tell me what do they see in this picture? What they infer from this picture? Comment in the chat box.
A mind very much distracted and too many thoughts going on. So I think there's one calm person, a very calm mind, but because of the surrounding, he's affected so much that, it's that other picture shows that, he's very much disturbed and the surrounding has attacked him in many ways. So he's been yeah, that's what I can say.
It's thank you, Pooja. It's very accurately you described. The thing is, mind here, it coexists. It's like we have to live our whole life with this one person which is sitting inside us and which acts in random manner, which acts in a different way, which if we do not know, it compels us to act in the other way also. And this person mind with us, it is carried with us not in just in this life, it is carried with us in the next life also. So when a person leaves this body, Bhagavad Gita says and the scripture says that it has a covering of subtle covering of mind, intelligence, and false ego. So mind carries along with it's not just a relationship of this this birth, but this is an eternal relationship between mind and body, mind and soul. Unless and until you make your way back home, back to Godhead, which is when these subtle objects are out of the picture. But mind is a person with which you have to live, which is always we have this conflict dilemma within us, whether to do this. Mind is proposing whether should we do this or they should not do this. So that is why it is important to learn how to deal with this mind, how to make it our friend, because this is a relationship not just for this life. This is the relationship for life after life. So here are some of the examples because of mind how people are suffering. These are some of the headlines that is frequently coming into the newspapers these days, like feeling the pressure of pandemic, suicide hotline sees 800% spike in the call. And there is news anchor commits suicide in Hyderabad, and she says that my brain is my enemy. And again, one more headline is woman commits suicide at AIIMS after her mother dies of cancer. So people do not know how to react or respond to the situations. Because of the lack of this knowledge, which is given in the Bhagavad Gita, the stress or anxiety that is put to us by mind, people succumb to that. But if we know, if we have this techniques with us how to deal with mind, so-called weapons with us to deal with mind, that is why we are waging a war on mind, because mind magnifies the problem. Now I will see what is the function of mind. See, on the left side, you see a picture of light coming from sun, and in childhood, you all must have done this experiment of putting a magnifying glass and putting a paper below that. After a while, the light gets, the paper gets burned because it has concentrated all the sunlight into one beam, and then it burns down the paper. Whereas there is one more picture on the right side, which is having a light way, and you put a prism, and it causes diffraction. That means light is made up of 7 colors, so it diffracts it and creates those 7 colors again. Ideally, the function of mind is, this is the expectation. On the left side, we have the expectation, and the right side, we have the reality. The expectation from mind is that to get absorbed in whatever things we are doing. That is the function of mind. But the reality is, it doesn't get absorbed, but it is all wanders all over the place. Whenever we are working on something, let's say these days, most of us are working from home, all of a sudden this urge will come within us that, okay, let's check the WhatsApp, let's check the Facebook, let's make a call to a friend, and let's do this, and important work is going on, and because mind keeps on proposing all this, and we kind of succumb to that and accept that. So this is the function of mind, expectation and reality.
I have a point to be shared. Sorry, Chintan, to disrupt you. But yeah, as you were speaking, I think that's more of a reality, because nowadays social media has become the key to everything. It's not just like I'm the mother of 2 kids, and my 6-year-old seeing us, that we are mostly occupied with the phone or WhatsApp. So it's not only us, it's more of it has gone to the kids as well. And I think that Facebook or the social media, Twitter, these are the things which are actually killing others, because everything now and then on social media, it's all about the news, and too many things have been bombarded, and people are getting influenced, and it was a wave of cooking in one place, and there's so many things which lockdown has affected, not only us, but in fact even our kids and our further generations.
Yeah, very true. Yes, because even I would say drinking alcohol, that has been a lesser addiction than the addiction of mobile phones,
correct.
Social media, and that is all because mind has taken over the charge of this whole system. And we'll see how mind has overtaken this, and what is the hierarchy. Like in any company, there is a CEO, below that there is a chief operating officer, then there are vice presidents, there are managing directors, then vice presidents, and then associates, like that. So there is a hierarchy given in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, but the hierarchy in our system has been changed, and we'll see what the hierarchy is and how is it changed. So there are usually some frequently asked questions in terms of mind. What is the mind? Where is it? Is it a real thing or some imagination? Am I my mind, or different from it? Or is my mind my best friend? So usually people have all these questions, conceptions about mind. Some even think that that's not a real thing, that even doesn't exist. All of these questions will be answered in following slides. So in Bhagavad Gita, there is this picture which says that there are 5 horses. Okay. So these 5 horses mean our 5 senses: seeing, smelling, hearing, touching, which is the sense of touch by skin, and tasting. That these 5 horses are controlled by our mind. So these senses report to mind, and mind is supposed to report to intelligence, and intelligence is supposed to report to the soul, it is the Atma, and this whole chariot is the body. So this is the hierarchy I was referring to, but there is a glitch in this hierarchy. Glitch meaning the way the hierarchy functions for us. This is one more picture where that same hierarchy is shown. So this is just to make it clear. This is soul, and there is mind here, which has the interaction with all our 5 senses, and there is 5 senses taking information from external world, and mind is constantly giving proposals to the soul. So this is the hierarchy which is given in Bhagavad Gita, and it is in chapter 3, verse number 42. It says, Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhyah param manah manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. Translation: the working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is higher than the mind, and the soul is even higher than the intelligence. So working senses are above the dull matter. So this is working senses here. Above that, mind is there, above that, intelligence, and then there is soul. But what happens is intelligence is overcome by my mind these days. So the purpose of intelligence is discrimination. The function of intelligence is to discriminate, to choose between right and wrong. Okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to not to, I'm not supposed to do Facebook now, I'm not supposed to do social media now, I'm not supposed to waste my time watching useless videos on YouTube or WhatsApp. That is the function of intelligence. But mind, he has overtaken intelligence, and he starts controlling, he starts giving the order to the body, because senses are in control. Okay, go watch it, do it. So mind keeps on giving instructions to keeps on giving approvals on behalf of intelligence, and intelligence is weak. So the actual hierarchy should be intelligence should be above and mind should be below that. Right now it is reverse, and we will see practical tips of how to make intelligence again stronger than the mind. So what is mind? This is mind versus brain, and earlier was mind versus intelligence. Sometimes if we ask someone where is mind, so they would refer here. But here it is a brain. It's a hardware through which mind interacts with the external world. Mind is actually a subtle covering on the soul. Soul has a covering of mind, intelligence, and false ego. But it cannot be seen with a microscope or anything because it's a subtle object. It cannot be seen, it's a covering on it. But brain is a hardware through which mind functions or interacts with this world. Now, if I have a very good laptop, I have a wonderful RAM, wonderful processor, hard disk has huge hard disk, and I have a very bad operating system on that, maybe very old operating system on that, which has a virus in it. So no matter how good the hardware is, maybe it's a laptop or my mobile or anything, there has to be a good functioning software without virus, then only the system will work as expected. Otherwise, the system will not work as it is supposed to work. On the contrary, if I have a laptop which has some less configurations, then it will, but the operating system is good, it is without virus, then it will still function. To give you an example, Yudhishthir and Duryodhan from Mahabharata. Duryodhan had everything you can imagine. Duryodhan never used to repeat a dress what he has worn once. He would not even eat a same dish again if he has ate it once. And he would remember that this I have eaten this many days back, so why is it being served again? So the Duryodhan had 16,000 accountants just to take care of his wealth, that how much money is coming, how much money is being spent, all that function. He has 16,000 account and practically everything in this world that was imagined, that one can imagine. But still his software was corrupt. His mind was like, no, I want more, I want more. Why? I won't even give 1 inch of land. What to speak of 1 inch? And the tip of the needle also I'll not give to Pandav. Whereas Yudhishthir, he practically lost everything. Yudhishthir and Pandav, but their software was still working fine. That's how they were able to overcome. So this is the first part of the presentation where we are seeing what all problems mind can cause, and there will be solution at this in the second part of the. Everyone with me till now?
Yes.
Chintan.
Cool. So mind is a software, brain is a hardware. Now, Bhagavad Gita gives us a clear understanding of mind, which we exist on 3 levels. So usually when we see ourselves in mirror, we just see our body. But there are 2 more things here. There is mind and there is a soul also. If we can see our soul and mind, because we cannot see soul and mind, because we think that everything that is functioning is because of our body. But Bhagavad Gita says, no. The body is temporary, but soul is permanent, which is going to stay with you for eternity. You are not the body, you have a body, Bhagavad Gita tells us. You are not the body, you have a body. So whenever someone even passes away, we say he passed away. So what passed away? It was the soul that passed away. Body is still there because the person was the same. He's looking same. There's practically no change in that person. But still we say he passed away. Why? Because we have that intuition. We have that intelligence that we are not this body, we are soul. But because it is called out of sight is out of mind. Because we see ourselves all the time in mirror, we falsely identify ourselves with the body. This is the first knowledge that one can have, that identifying that, okay, there are different components within me. So I am the soul. I have a mind which is supposed to work under me, I have the intelligence, which is also supposed to work under me. That identification you have, that is half of the problem solved. That you identify yourself that I am not this body, I have this body. I have two reportees under me, mind and intelligence. I have only one actually, intelligence, and mind is supposed to report to intelligence. So I have to operate them, not that I should be operated by my mind. So one can ask, what is the difference between soul and mind? Soul is the root of consciousness, like it's the root. That is you. You are the soul. And then what is mind? It is route of consciousness through which you can purify your consciousness. It is a part of your consciousness. Mind, intelligence, false ego, your senses, all this constitute your consciousness. So moving on, the other part, second part that we are discussing is how the mind tricks us. Do you know, have you ever seen such kind of performances where there is a puppet in the hand and then there's a person who pretends that the puppet is talking, but in reality that person is talking? It's called, this art is called ventriloquism or ventriloquy. So this is an art of stagecraft in which a person creates the illusion that their voice is coming from elsewhere, usually a puppeteer prop known as dummy. So this is the way. Right now, this is the mind, and we are the puppet. And mind tells us, okay, do this. It's how many of you have had this or faced this, that you put an alarm for, let's say, in the morning to wake up at 5 a.m., but you snooze the alarm and go back to sleep again. I do
Every
that
day. Every day.
every day. Yes.
I used to do that.
Yeah, every day.
Yeah. That is because the mind takes over the control of the body. And he convinces you, man, you have had a rough day. Yesterday you need to rest. Take some rest, chill pill. Why worry so much? If you at least sleep 15 more minutes at least, and before we know that 15 more minutes turn into 1 hour. So that is how, and this is just an example. This applies to so many different things. People procrastinate, or listening to mind, they become angry on someone, and they pick up fight with someone because he told you this. This is how mind tricks us, acting on our behalf, speaking for us. Because first of all, because we do not even have that identification that mind is supposed to work for me. Another thing that mind does is it magnifies the problem. How many times have you faced a situation where you are speaking with a friend and he's telling you a problem, and you think that that problem is not that big, but that person who's describing you the problem, for his angle, the mind has like inflated the problem. I remember one of my friend calling me and telling me that she just had a fight with her father, and there's so much stress and anxiety going on. And the reason I asked why, what happened? They said, we are buying a car, and it's very nice car, but the color of the car is not of my choice. So for her, that problem became such a big problem to pick on a fight with the father. Similarly, mind, even in this current situation, in some companies there are some layoffs happening, or they're cutting down the salary. Mind magnifies the problem. Hey, what will happen to you? You might also lose job. You might also get fired, or there might be, what will happen with your EMIs, what will happen with your bill payments. Yes, those are certain things we should be prepared for, but we shouldn't be bogged down by it. Shouldn't People are going into depression left and right these days. The wellness industry is booming like anything. I know so many mindfulness speakers that they are saying that so many people are coming to them. So this is one more thing that mind does with us. It magnifies the problem. The previous one was it acts on behalf of us, and here it magnifies the problem.
Chintan, and I think, sorry, but I think one more point which is coming up is like more of anxiety is going on nowadays with people. Like, you were discussing about mindfulness and, how it gets be influenced with over intelligence. And I think moreover, it's also the anxiety which brings in, little things people are nowadays getting worried about and, getting stressed. And that's where even relationships are being affected because of anxiety, and small little things are getting into fights. And so it's like
Yes.
anxiety is one of the parts which I think I would like to add on to it. Yeah.
Yes, very true, very true. Because as I said, mind wouldn't, and this is also one more thing that mind does. It doesn't allow us to be in present. Anxiety, the main reason is because mind has magnified the problem and taken over the control. And see, mind says here, things are out of control. Your end has come. Think about this. If someone keeps on telling us, or putting this information to you again and again, I'm going to go in anxiety. I'll be anxious. I will be stressed. I'll be depressed. All those things would come down. Their root is because mind is mind has overtaken. Mind is misguiding them. And other thing is, it doesn't let us to be in the present. It is either it is worrying about the past, or there are grudges about the future, or there are some insecurities about the future, or there are some grudges left behind from the past. Like if you see this bird, the bird flies because of the two wings the bird has. These are, now consider this bird as the mind. The left wing is the past and the right wing is the future. Now, because of this wing, the bird flies. It doesn't stay at one point. He just flips the wings and goes to some other location. Similarly, mind, suddenly from this present moment you are working, it will suddenly go to future, start worrying about the future. Hey, I have to go on a vacation. I have to plan this. I have to arrange for the EMIs. I have to buy a bigger house. I have to buy a television. All those things, and or it's in work. Suddenly, all of a sudden, you are working, and it will go into something in past that has happened with you, where you think that you should have done that, or someone has told you something, and then inside your mind you can feel this. You are having a conversation, and you are giving a reply to that person in your mind. You create that imaginary person in that, not imagine that conversation has happened for real, but mind plays the tape again and again, and you come up with newer responses. I should have said that in this situation. I should have said this in that situation. So it doesn't let you to be in present. Only if that's the function. You have, the mind is supposed to focus on something, but it gets, like in the first slide we saw, the magnifying glass, and the diffraction that is caused. So it doesn't let us to be. So in order for the mind to be in present, these two wings of the bird needs to be cut. Past and future. Worrying about grudging about the past or worrying about the future. This, how to deal with this, we'll see in the solutioning part. So, Bhagavad Gita tells us, is mind our best friend or it's an enemy? So, we'll see what Bhagavad Gita says. In chapter 6, text 6, it says, Bandhur atmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmanah jita anant antamanastu sa shatrutve vartate maivat shatruvat. Translation means, for him who has conquered the mind is the best friend. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So we see even in the software and hardware slide, we saw that how Duryodhan and Yudhishthir stayed, even though Duryodhan had everything, still he wanted more and more and more because the software was corrupt. Similarly, we see many people with disabilities, they have so many disabilities physically, but they overcome all of this, and because their mind is so strong that they go on creating world records, they go on creating a big community or serving so many people, even though they are disabled sitting on a chair, they do that. And because of this mind, the software, even healthy people which are fully functional, they either commit suicide, commit crimes, or become non-functional. So why two people are reacting in a two different way, even though both are having the same things? So here is the answer. One who conquers the mind is the best friend, because you have such a powerful friend with you now, who is your friend. You can accomplish so many things. Think about having friendship with a governor or secretary of state, how much it can benefit you. Think about having a friendship with a wealthy person, how much they can help you to reach out to people, to spread some message you want to spread. Such influential thing or such powerful weapon is mind. But think about that same person acting against you now. What can you do? That you are going to have a devastation. You're going to be devastated. You're going to be finished. That is why it is so important to be friends with mind and rather have mind under a check. So we'll see what are the three ways in which mind will attack us and become our enemy. So once we know how someone is going to attack us, we can prepare better for our defense. That is why we'll understand how mind is attacking us and stop that attack. Whenever that attack is happening, we'll stop it. And then we'll have a counter attack as well. We'll have a counter remedy also in the solution part. So the acronym used here is BAD. It binds us, it agitates us, and it distracts us. Whenever you see this happening, you acknowledge it. First step is acknowledge it that this is happening. Mind is taking over. It is taking the control. And now it's my turn. Now I have to deal with the situation. I have to take the controls in my hand. So bind meaning it binds you in doing four things: sleeping, eating, enjoying, and defending. Sleeping, eating, enjoying, defending, what does that mean? One can argue that no, these are the necessities of life. Yes, these are the necessities of life, but mind is constantly making plans, imagining how can I improve my enjoyments in this world. How can I have better food? How can I have better defense prepared for me and my family? How can I sleep for some more time? So in these four things, it keeps us engaged. that, hey, you have to take care of this, you have to take care of this. It kind of binds us, so that it tells you that you do not, that it creates a picture that you are so much occupied in these four things that you literally have no time left for feeding to your intelligence. The solution is, if we have to bring intelligence above mind, we have to nourish our intelligence. We have to give nourishment to the intelligence. That's how intelligence will overcome. But mind will keep you bounded by, in these four activities, you will not make any progress. It will just, in this loop only people will be circling. Now one may argue that, is it wrong to become ambitious because I want to have a good house, I want to have good equipments and all? Yes, it is good to have it, but putting yourself in stress or envying on others for having it, that is not what should happen. And it agitates us. Second thing is, first is bind, second is agitate. Now in this picture, this is an electric eel. This is a fish which gives an electric shock. Whenever you go near that electric eel, it gives you a shock. And here's a crocodile, an electric eel. Electric eel gives us such a level of shock that it can kill crocodile as well. So this is how mind agitates us. Whenever it sees that it becomes insecure with small things, like let's say my colleague is doing some good job in the office and he's reporting something to my boss or my superior, mind suddenly starts thinking and feeling insecure that, hey, he's doing a good job and he's doing this, what if this? Then somehow you will try to manipulate the boss or try to show something bad in that colleague, that he didn't do this thing right. I know, I mean, I shouldn't tell this, but this is how it should have been done. So you start feeling insecure as soon as someone comes even closer to you, even though they may be coming to help you, but people start feeling insecure. And in those circumstances, what is inside comes outside. Like if you have a lemon and you squeeze a lemon juice will come out. If you have orange, if you squeeze on orange juice will come out. Similarly, if you have those morals and values and discipline within you with the controlled mind, even though someone will agitate you, you'll not react to them, you will respond to them. You are not supposed to react, you are supposed to respond to a situation. Similarly, there is this hammerhead fish. Hammerhead fish is also known for attacking people. Even if someone says something small to you, something that may not be worthy of a fight, but mind tells us, mind massages our ego, telling that, how can they tell this to you? You are so and so big person. Don't you have a self-esteem? We should also have some self-esteem. And then mind starts attacking the other person. So the electric eel was for insecurities. The hammerhead is for attacking for small reasons. So this is how mind agitates us. And there is a cigarette box also on the bottom right that indicates us that some of our bad habits that we may be carrying with us, whenever mind sees something bad which can give some immediate pleasure to you, mind will propose it, that, hey, why not have a smoke of cigarette. I've seen so many people starting to smoke just for the sake of experience. I want to experience, and slowly they, when cigarette has trapped them, they are not even aware about that. So mind agitates us every time it sees someone smoking, or it proposes that why not smoke? It will give you pleasure, it will give you high. So these are certain tools that mind uses to agitate us. Now, this is a big, now we come to the third point, which is distraction, wherein you see a cricketer appealing to the umpire. In cricket, this happens many times where the bowler appeals, even though the bowler may know that this is not out. But they put pressure on the umpire again and again, pressure on the batsman also by appealing. This is what mind does. Again and again, pushing on something that I know that drinking alcohol is bad, or I know that doing Facebook or YouTube or any other things that are taking away my time are not favorable for me at this point of time. But mind keeps on distracting us. It keeps on proposing new solution. Why not do this? Why not do this? Why not do this? This is the reason people procrastinate. People think, some people every 31st December, people have this New Year resolution. They'll say, no, next year onwards, I'm not going to do this. And by 2nd of January, you see most of the resolutions breaking. That is because people have resolutions from reducing the weight or doing yoga daily to going to gym. But mind keeps on proposing, keeps on distracting from its path. That is the malfunctioning of the mind, because it keeps on taking decisions on your behalf. So these are the ways in which mind attacks us. Bind, bad meaning bind, agitate, and distract. We saw 3 of them. And the solution people usually I've seen that are offering outside is keep calm and carry on. Focus your mind and look at a candlelight and do not think something, or do not speak for 5 days. All that thing, keep calm and carry on. If it was that easy, we would have seen greater results. But no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work like that. It's not that easy. We need to first understand the architecture of mind, body, soul, intelligence. Then only we know the entire system, how is it functioning. Now we can go to repair it. Mind is malfunctioning at this point of time. I may have spoken about bind, agitate, distract. Not all of you may be facing with these problems, but some of you, not all of the problems, but somewhere someone is facing something. If you are not, then it's even better for you. You can directly start using the solution to even enhance your further abilities. So spiritual intelligence to understand the mind. Now the TV I'm showing on the screen, is it a black and white TV or a colored TV? Anyone?
Maybe black and white as well as color. I mean, any one of them it can be any one of them.
So if I have a black and white TV, can I play a colored movie on it?
No.
No, right? Similarly, no matter how good high definition the movie is prepared, but the TV, if it is a black and white old TV, it cannot play that or cannot do the justice to the clarity of the picture that it is supposed to give. So the solution to deal with the subject matter of mind should come from the spiritual intelligence. It cannot be from the same level through which it is getting created. Like I'm getting a problem, I'm in a problem through something, that same problem cannot be the solution as well. So for the solution, I have to go to a higher platform, which is the spiritual intelligence. And we'll go to that higher platform now. Now we'll see what Arjuna has to say about mind in Bhagavad Gita. He says in chapter 6, verse 34, he says, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramathi balavantridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayor iva sudushkaranam. It means the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. To subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Now think about this. Who is telling about mind? It is Arjuna who is telling about the mind, that it is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. To subdue it is, I think, more difficult than controlling the wind. Now, Arjuna at that 5,000 years ago was the most prominent person on the earth. Combine Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, all the big people you know, multiply them with 1 million. Still, they wouldn't reach to 1% of capabilities Arjuna had at that point of time. And he's saying this. Then what should we do? I mean, don't we have a solution? Thankfully, Krishna responded to him in the next verse, saying, Sri Bhagwan Vacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigram Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihiyate. Translation, it means, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind. It is very, and Krishna is acknowledging that, yes, it is very difficult to curb the restless mind. But it is possible. Okay, thank God, it is possible. How? By suitable practice and by detachment. I have to detach myself from the material sense enjoyments, or I have to practice. I have to keep on practicing this. Practicing what? Bringing mind in my control and detach myself from this useless hope of me to that this material world is going to give me enjoyment. That, oh, there is this beautiful picture, I have to see it. So slowly you have to develop detachment and you have to keep on practicing it. You have to improve it. It is not like that you attend this session today and tomorrow onwards, yes, I have won the war against mind. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen also. Because the creator, like I have this mobile phone and it's a Samsung phone, and I know very little about what is inside, how's the hardware and how is it functioning. If I have to, there's some problem, I have to go to the Samsung company to get it repaired. Now, in this world, we are not the creators, we are the users. Even our body, I didn't create my body. I am the user of this body. So, if I am the user, I have to listen to what the creator is telling me. He's telling me to practice and do detachment. So I have to follow that, because Bhagavad Gita is not just a textbook, religious textbook, is anything but a religious textbook actually. It is a book for mankind. It's a manual of life. It has so much, so each verse in this that we are discussing, we can actually speak for on it. For each verse, we can speak for hours. So much content is already given in that. But unfortunately, it's nowhere taught in our educational system. Then into 70, it says that one of the ways how to deal with it, like I was telling about these urges that come within of enjoyment. I want to enjoy this. I want to enjoy. If I see something good, they want to see it. No smell. If you pass by some restaurant, they immediately want to eat something. So many times I go to a supermarket to buy something, but we go to buy one product, but we end up buying 5 because eyes cannot resist. They look and, oh, I want it, I want it, I want it. So for that, there is a remedy mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, again in chapter 2, text 70. It says, Apuryamana machala pratishtam samudra apa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kami. It means a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enters like river into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Okay, too much content, right? What does that mean? Okay, just like there are many rivers entering into the ocean, the ocean is never uh, never too much in imbalanced. It is always maintaining its calm. Similarly, there might be rivers of desires entering into your mind, or your mind may be proposing it, but it's not like you have to take action on every other desire of it. You have to pick and choose. You have to let your intelligence discriminate between right and wrong. So, and it says, not the man who strives to satisfy. But if you keep on giving it up, then mind becomes stronger, stronger, stronger. It is said that we have 2 dogs within us. One is a good dog, one is a bad dog. The one we feed the more would become stronger. So how do you feed a good dog? By continuously enjoying the material sense objects, or giving up to urges of mind. That is how you feed the bad dog. How do you feed the good dog? Good dog you feed by this way. You do, the acronym is AIM. Associate, illuminate, and meditate. So this is the solution part we are coming to now. I'm sorry, we are going a bit over the time, but I'll try to wrap up as soon as. So these are the 3 ways, 3 weapons through which you can fight back the mind. So we usually see there are hospitals built to address the problems in the body. If I have some scratch or something, or I had a road accident, I'll go to the hospital and look after it. The doctors will take care. Unfortunately, if there is an internal problem, the software is corrupt, there is a virus, there is no hospital to build that. But there are hospitals which is called mandir, temple. This is a temple. You go to temple, you associate with people who are like-minded and get the knowledge with them, from them, and work with them, because whenever you have good association with you make progress in that. Like it is said that tell me your 5 closest friend and I'll tell you where you will be after 5 years. If you have good association, definitely you will end up doing good. If you have bad association who are constantly engaged into wrong activities, you will end up doing wrong things. Sometimes good people come into bad association and they end up doing, and we hear this, hey, that guy, he had to go to jail. Why? Because he was such a nice guy. In school times, he was with me in school. What happened to him? Oh, he got in some bad association. That is why association is very important. You have to associate with right kind of people who have same inclination as you, and illuminate yourself. How do we illuminate ourselves? Is distance yourself from the mind by doing two things. Here are the two things we have to do. Read spiritual guides like the Bhagavad Gita and practice mantra meditation. So read spiritual books. The part we are talking about, feeding the good dog, or strengthening the intelligence. How you strengthen the intelligence? You read the word of God, which is this Bhagavad Gita, this book right here. God has given this manual of life. Everyone should read it regardless of the caste, creed, religion they follow, because it has such valuable lessons in it. And that is how you know the intelligence then has the direction. Okay, I'm supposed to do this, I'm not supposed to do that. Then intelligence becomes is strengthened, and it goes above mind, the problem that we discussed earlier. So here is a case study. Bhagavad Gita has actually the entire source code of how one functions, how we end up with satisfying our urges, how it happens actually. So I'll read the translation only. It says in chapter 2 and text 62, it says, while contemplating the object of senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. And in 63, it says, from anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Now, what does this mean is contemplating on the sense object, meaning you are contemplating on something. Oh, I need to have this. I need to enjoy with this particular thing. Then you are contemplating. It is first only the thought is there. Then you are attached to that thought. From attachment, you develop a lust toward it. Lust is not just for opposite sex or in that way. Any strong desire to achieve something is lust. And if you do not get it, then from lust comes anger. But if you get it, you get greed. So one may say that, okay, I was contemplating on this object, but I got it. Now I didn't develop anger. But you develop greed then, because you will have that in you to get more out of it. Now from anger, what comes? Delusion arises. One loses the ability to think between right and wrong. And then bewilderment of memory. Bewilderment of memory, which is like, last time I did this happened. Now, if I do it again, this will again happen. But bewilderment of memory. Last time, let's say someone did something, a robber pickpocketed someone, and he knows that I had to go to jail, but he does that again, forgetting the past experience. And when memory is bewildered, intelligence doesn't have a choice. Memory is bewildered. So intelligence actually works like, artificial intelligence. It works on pre-processed data. But if your memory is lost, how can the intelligence discriminate between right and wrong? And if intelligence cannot discriminate, one falls down again into material pool. Now, this was a bit complicated source code that we discussed from Bhagavad Gita. So we'll go with the case study of how this actually happens step by step. So we'll consider a story of alcoholic who is just out of rehab. So many people are suffering with drugs problem, and we are hearing it in Bollywood also. It is widespread. It's all coming out now. Everyone is suffering, no matter how much money you have or how much strong you are. Once you are in this vicious circle of alcohol, drugs, or the example is only for alcoholic, but it applies to everyone in every scenario. It's just an example given for alcohol, but it applies to anger, it applies to greed, it applies to envy, it applies to your lusty behavior. Everything these are the same processes would happen. This is what Bhagavad Gita, we are just breaking down that verse again. So from contemplation, first step is contemplation. So as soon as one person comes out of the rehab, he thinks like, he starts considering the prospects of drinking, and he passes a liquor shop and he says, oh wow, look at that, doesn't that look good? So this liquor bottle, they're made by the manufacturer, they look so good. Then attraction, he starts feeling that a drink will be enjoyable and it's nice, you can relax and enjoy. So he gives, the mind proposes that, hey, you were so much sober, you were sober for so many days in the rehab center, you were sober for 3 months, now you deserve applause. Now let's celebrate that. How do we celebrate? Okay, let's you should have a drink and relax. Then obsession comes. Okay, then slowly the mind is putting the he's creating the bait, attracting it towards doing what mind's like. And then obsession comes. He starts feeling strongly infatuated by it. I want it and I want it now. So there's a big urge within that is coming, that I want it and I want it now. Then comes irritation. Let's say if someone is there and they try to stop that person, hey, you just coming from rehab, you're not supposed to drink alcohol again. Then he starts feeling irritated by that, and at anything that stops him from getting it, he'll start getting angry towards those. And then the mind questions this, who can stop me from doing what I like? Then comes delusion, which was discussed in 2.63. He gets completely confused about what is good and bad. I don't need anyone's advice, I know what to do. Then he becomes oblivion. He forgets the hangover, the bondage, and the miseries that alcohol has caused in the past. There's so much pleasure here, why should I not enjoy? So do it now. If there is suffering, we'll take care of it later. But now I want enjoyment now. So the Asurik Pravrutti starts coming out. The word Asura means, Asu means immediate, and Ra means Ramana. Immediate enjoyment. I want the enjoyment now only. That is Asur. That Asuric Pravrutti starts coming out at this stage. And then stupefaction. He loses his intellectual capacity to discern before acting and decides to act on the spur of the moment. I am going to drink right now. And then destruction. He falls headlong into a relapse and wallows it till he wakes up with an awful headache and throws up in the washroom. He has had this experience in past, but he's having this experience again because why? It wasn't curbed in the very first go, the contemplation stage only. At this point, mind was not that strong, but after obsession and irritation stage, mind started taking over. And this is not just for, again, not just for alcohol or even for anger. I know a friend who had a relative who would be angry at a very small things. He had broken so many TVs and phones at his home. This is for anger and all other bad things, anarthas we are talking about. So in text chapter 2, text 59 says, though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense object remains, but ceasing such engagement by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Okay, you can tell someone that do not do these bad things, do not consume alcohol, do not be angry on something. You need to give them a higher taste. If I'm just telling them to stop alcohol, it's not going to work. But it has to be replaced by something, maybe a healthy fruit juice. One of my friends recently contacted me that I am having this urge. They're trying to get away from tea, but I'm having this urge to drink tea again and again and again. People drink so many teas in a day, then it causes acidity and sleeping insomnia problems. The solution I told was, whenever you have this urge of drinking tea, drink hot milk instead. Your bad qualities, we cannot just stop like that. You have to replace it with something. And we can see even in ISKCON movement in the initial days, Prabhupada had to face with so many drug addicts. All the hippies started in the movement coming first. And Prabhupada used to give them a gulab jamun. That whenever there is a urge within you to eat or to have drugs, you eat this gulab jamun. He used to call it ISKCON bullets. And when they used to become sober, then Prabhupada used to say, I got you by ISKCON bullet. It's called the gulab jamun. So you have to give them the higher taste. Until unless there is no higher taste of associating with like-minded people or illuminating with scriptures. Or the third point I wanted to give is the mantra. Aim, right? Associate, illuminate, and M is for mantra. Mantra means mana trayate iti mantra. One that delivers the mind is mantra. And for this day and age, the prescribed mantra is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This mantra, when chanted, it clears our sinful activities, sinful actions that we have committed, and it starts the purification process within us. Intelligence starts becoming stronger. It starts taking charge over it, and mind goes on lower level. It becomes under control. Now, one may say that when I chant mantra, my mind doesn't let me concentrate. Here and there, the mind wanders. The answer to that is, if mind wanders here and there, that is fine. Your job is to just hear the mantra. Hear the mantra, chant the mantra, and hear it. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives this example of tortoise. So, whenever we go to gym, we do pull-ups, we do push-ups. Every time we do that, whenever the mind distracts and we use intelligence, right? We use intelligence. At that point of time, like you're working on something, you're chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna mantra, and mind wanders, you bring it back, you pull it back. Every time you do that, it's a one pull up for your intelligence, and that's how your intelligence strengthens. That is the exercise that you have, like a tortoise. What happens to tortoise, the way it behaves? Whenever tortoise sees that he is in danger, he withdraws all the limbs inside, and it has a hard covering on the top that protects it. So he withdraws it, and that covering protects the tortoise. This is the example given by Krishna only in Bhagavad Gita. I'll just read the translation. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense object as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. So whenever you see your consciousness going here and there, withdraw it, bring it back. Bring it back. That's the exercise. It's not, I'm not recommending it. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. The creator is giving it. One is able to withdraw his senses from sense object. Withdraw it. Any kind of sense object. Any propensity to enjoy anything. Withdraw it as the tortoise draws its limb within the shell and is firmly fixed in perfect. And if you do that, what happens? You are firmly fixed in the perfect consciousness. Then you have everything in control. I'll just quickly go through the summary. What we discussed. We discussed what is mind, why we have to do war on mind, because it continuously puts us in stress, anxiety, and depression. Where is it located? We saw it in Bhagavad Gita. It is a subtle object. It is between soul and intelligence. What is mind versus intelligence versus brain? We saw that mind is a software, brain is the hardware, intelligence is supposed to control the mind. How it tricks us, we saw with the example of ventriloquism, where mind starts taking decision on our behalf. We saw that it magnifies the problem. That is the second thing. Third thing was it doesn't let us be in the present. It either takes into the future or it takes into the past. How it attacks us, we saw it binds us in doing the regular sleeping, eating, enjoying and defending stuff, and then agitates us. We saw it with the example of electric eel, hammerhead, fish, people smoking, and distracts us. We saw the cricketer appealing to the umpire, continuously appeals us that, hey, do this, hey, do that. That leads to procrastination. You have a goal, people think that I will achieve this by the end of this year, or I have this resolution. People break it because there are so many distractions that are continuously thrown by the mind. All of this we saw with the references from Bhagavad Gita, and then remedy at the end. We saw that associate with like-minded people. If you have a good company, you have a good future. We discussed that. If tell me your 5 friends and I'll tell you where you will be after 5 years. That is the power of association. Illuminate yourself by reading the scripture, the word of God. If you do not have the scripture, Bhagavad Gita, I'll highly recommend that you buy one and read from it. We conduct regular classes and do mantra meditation. I gave you the mantra: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is the Maha Mantra. This is the prescribed mantra for this day and age, Kali Yuga. And this is not just, as I spoke, that this is the process dealing with mind and bringing intelligence above mind. This is the process. And there are many hidden gems in Bhagavad Gita that we saw today. We only saw some of them, but we do have regular discussion on Bhagavad Gita. Every week we meet Saturday and Sunday from 4 p.m. EST to 5:30 p.m. EST. I will give you the links here in the chat box. Let me give you the links to join our discussion on this. You can join this WhatsApp group. So it is called Rethink Your Life, and we have some lectures already recorded in the YouTube channel. So I'll give you that also. So if you want, you can go through that lectures also. If all of you, so first of all, let me show you what all things we cover as part of that. So in Rethink Your Life series, we have this, what I believe, how does it matter? This is a 6 topic series, and each topic we'll discuss for 2 weeks. What I believe, how does it matter? The first topic. Second is, who is God? We'll go deeper into the God. Who is God? Does he care? Why should I care? How and why the world is created? Am I special? What happens after we die? And what should I live in this world? How should I live in this world? So these are the things we discuss in this. I will share all the details on the email ID you have given to me. And now, if you have any questions, we can discuss on that. And if you all of you can turn on your video, I would like to have a picture for my memory with you all. Yeah, hi.
Hello, Chintan.
Hi. Yeah, so anyone wants to discuss anything? Has any questions?
Hare Krishna Chintan Prabhu. The session was really good. So yeah, it told the perfect difference between mind and intelligence. So I never come across this before. It was really very helpful.
It's all in this. I'm just
Yeah,
repeating what it is.
My other question is, the Bhagavad Gita I have is little different than this one. Is a different version. I have is.
Is it written by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta
Yes,
Swami
yes,
Prabhupada?
yes.
Yeah, that's fine because they have the different covers.
Okay, the cover is different. Okay.
Yeah. As long as the author is His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta.
Yes.
Swami Prabhupada.
Yeah. show you the one that I
Uh,
have. This is
Do we have the same session
the one I have.
as like yesterday, Chintan?
Today, yes, same session.
Same session. Okay. Yeah.
I would love to join in now more sessions now. It was really very informative and very much insights on the Bhagavad Gita. So I think, yeah, I'm looking forward for more sessions coming up.
Sure. So you can join
And
our
like-
Rethink Your Life series.
And then, sorry, I think we should even have for some kids also, because I think Bhagavad Gita now should go insights of our kids, as they're
That is
developing.
very important.
So I would request if we can have some sessions or some short mythological stories wherein we can involve our kids, because they also, I mean, this is the right time for us to get in, because
Yeah. Sure. So we do have some classes for kids. I do not conduct them, but there are some other people who do conduct classes for kids. I will get you in touch with those people. They do
Sure.
conduct classes for kids.
Well, I think short mythological stories also, if we have like on the weekends, because Monday to Friday they're tied up with school and other things. So I think that will be
Yeah.
really helpful in, getting their roots, their basics clear from now rather than going up to the later, because now it's festival season. So my son nowadays, he sees everything around. So there are too
Right.
many questions at part, we are unable to answer. So it's like, I'm sure these sessions will help them in their upbringing as well in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, see, this child age is the developing age. In this age, they are developing their brain and mind. So if you give them exposure at this age, the fundamentals are very strong.
Fundamentals are very strong. Correct.
And they grasp it, so they learn. Like I know people in ISKCON, the kids, they learn the shlokas like anything. They are so quick on learning this. I have to memorize. I have to spend so much time to memorize one slok, but the kids are so fast in memorizing.
Correct. That's true.
Okay,
So
I
how-
have a question. So you
Yeah.
prepare for this session, right? With only the Bhagavad Gita book you prepare for these sessions, or is there any other source that you are referring to?
Well, I also refer to, for this particular session was only on Bhagavad Gita. I didn't much speak. There was some here and there I spoke on Mahabharat, but I also read Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a work by, this is again a glorious work by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So
Okay.
there are 18 books like this. They make up one Bhagavatam set, which is like 12 cantos, which
Okay.
has
Okay.
like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, chant my name and you will be glorious and I'll save you. In Bhagavatam, you'll have a testimony of that. Like this is 6th canto and Ajamil is here. There's this, in 6th canto, they speak about Ajamil. He just chanted God's name only once at the time of death. He was saved. That testimony will be there. So it's, you can say it's a sequel to Bhagavad Gita. Like Krishna makes a lot of commitments in Bhagavad Gita. So where is the fulfillment? It's in Bhagavatam.
Bhagavatam. Okay. So on the Veda base link that you have shared, does that have all the information that is present in
Yeah.
Bhagavatam as well? So
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
is
it
covered
has
in that
all-
Veda based link, right?
Yeah.
If we don't
It
have the
has.
book, then we can refer to that Veda based link.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you can.
Okay.
So Chintan
All right.
Prabhu, we have 12 books that may like that makes the full Bhagavatam.
18 books.
Oh, 18 books. Really
12
like that?
canto, 12 canto,
Oh.
18 books.
Oh, okay.
You
Not
were
sure
showing
if
your-
we spend the entire lifetime also. I'm not sure if we
Yeah, we haven't
cover
even
everything.
I haven't even finished Bhagavad Gita one chapter yet, so I think for me still a lot of time. Yeah.
Even though reading those shlokas itself takes so much of time, and then translating and understanding each shloka. So I think,
Yeah, so that is where association comes in. Like, right? So I never thought I will do this, but thanks to Shama Prayasi, she started a call. She daily has a call in the morning from 5:30 a.m. We do chant together and then we read Bhagavatam daily for half an hour. We 4 or 5 people are there. So I could complete 6-7 books with her like this in 2 years. We have been doing.
I think
60
we can
plus
also
years.
be a part of that group, Chintan. I think we would
Yeah,
also,
yeah, sure.
I would love to be a part of that group, and because it's something which we all need, in our daily lives, and we are so busy. But even 30 minutes, as you said, or 15-20 minutes just in reading one verse, I think will really help us in at this point. So
Sure.
it
I
would
will
be
give
great
you
if you
details.
could involve us in this WhatsApp group. I think it will really help us in learning and
Mhm.
teachings from Bhagavad.
Sure. So
And
you
like
can
one
start
thing,
reading.
one more thing, right? So if you could give us an opportunity, each one of us will pick up one sloka per week. I mean, whatever we are able to, which chapter, like you can tell us a chapter also. I mean, which chapter you want us to do first? Like you have you have more knowledge, right? Which is more important, you would know more than us. Like since we are the